Hey everyone, it's Michelle. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'll be reviewing for you the Skinceuticals Physical Fusion UV Defense Sunscreen Broad Spectrum SPF 50. For those of you that don't know, Skinceuticals is an American cosmeceutical brand that can be found in many dermatologist clinics as well as medi-spas. They're more famously known for their vitamin C, E, ferulic acid serum. I pretty much try to find dupes related to that serum because it is very expensive, but today we're not talking about the vitamin C serum. We are talking about their tinted all-mineral sunscreen. I purchased this during the warmer months, so I got to try it out during the hotter weather, and now that it's the colder weather, I've been rotating it in my skincare routine once again, and I'm ready to share my thoughts with you all because I have noticed it does perform slightly differently for my normal to dry skin. On the Skinceuticals Canadian website, they describe the Physical Fusion UV Defense SPF 50 as a tinted, broad-spectrum sunscreen fluid with 100% mineral-based UV filters, which promotes radiance and an even skin tone, provides broad-spectrum UVA and UVB protection, boosts radiance for a more even, luminous complexion, helps boost skin's natural defenses to environmental stress, suitable for all skin types, even very sensitive. It is a sheer tinted sunscreen that adapts to most skin tones without a white cast. It is non-comedogenic, paraben, alcohol, dye, fragrance, and gluten-free. I purchased this at my dermatologist clinic for 48 Canadian dollars. This retails for 34 US dollars on most online retailers. As you can see, it comes in a 50 ml opaque gray tube. It is a twist-off cap with a small spout, so this kind of sunscreen you do need to shake it up and squeeze it out. For the UV filters, they use just zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. The zinc oxide they use is Z-Coat at a concentration of 5%. It is described as a microfine and translucent UV filter that is also non-greasy. The titanium dioxide is at a concentration of 6%, and they also described it in this formula as microfine. For UVB protection, as indicated on the label, it is at 50. For UVA protection, I believe here in Canada, it has to be at least 1/3 of what is indicated on the label. So if we're going by that, it is around 16.67. I did see on a random retailer website that the PPD is 21, but the thing is, Skinceuticals Canadian website and American website, from when I last checked, does not state the PPD. So when in doubt, I'm just going to go by what the Canadian regulations are. For additional ingredients, this also contains iron oxides and tocopherol, so vitamin E. It's an antioxidant. And for the iron oxides, they describe them as translucent colored spheres. So based on the iron oxides, titanium dioxide, and zinc oxide, it sounds like this should be pretty adaptable to the skin and not leave a major white cast. I'll show you the texture of the sunscreen right now, but first I gotta shake it up. So the texture is a fluid, as you can see. It is a bit of a runny consistency, but it did kind of stop on my hand a little bit. And it blends on the skin really easily. I don't need to work it into my skin so much. It does feel a smidge greasy. Okay, so this is the hand with the SPF, this is the hand without, and from what I could tell at this distance, my hand on this side looks a little bit more even and glowier. But keep in mind, this is a very thin application of the sunscreen, and it was just to get an idea of what the texture was like. Moving on to application, I am going to be showing you cutaways of me doing a split face application just so we could see how well the tint has actually been adapting to my skin tone. In my experience, I find the best way to apply mineral sunscreen is in two separate layers. That way I can give it a chance to either adapt to my skin tone if it is a universal tint, or if there is no tint, I just want to give it a chance to not create a cast as much as possible, because I find with mineral sunscreens, if I apply everything in one go, it doesn't adapt to my skin tone well, and it also looks very casty and chalky, and my skin looks very cakey. On initial application with this sunscreen, it glided across my skin pretty easily. I did make sure not to work it into my skin too much because I have noticed it does create dry patches. And while applying the sunscreen, I do notice that it pills along my hairline and eyebrows. After the first thin layer, what I could tell is my face looks a little bit brighter and a little bit more even. Any redness in my face has been slightly reduced compared to the side without the sunscreen. After applying one thin layer to my entire face and neck, I went in with a second layer, again doing a split face comparison, and comparing the side with two layers to the one thin layer, I have noticed that there was a difference in the look of the sunscreen. The one with the two layers again looked brighter, a bit more even, redness even more reduced, and the other side with the one thin layer actually looked different from the side with two layers. So that gave me an idea idea that it did adapt to my skin tone fairly quickly. I also noticed while applying this sunscreen that there have been numerous times where it stung not only my eyes but my skin as well. This kind of took me by surprise because I expected it to be a more gentle sunscreen because it is all mineral. So after applying the 2 layers of sunscreen, I did wait 15 to 20 minutes for it to set on my skin to see if there was any significant changes. In terms of the finish, it did stay quite glowy the entire time. However, it did look very skin-like. As for the feel of the sunscreen, after initial application, it still felt a little bit greasy to the touch, but once I waited the 15 to 20 minutes, it became a more tackier finish. In terms of the tint, I did notice that it matched to my skin tone pretty well. However, I did notice up close that there is a slight gray undertone. The purpose of that is to reduce redness, and for the most part, my skin looked really nice and even, and the gray undertone wasn't super noticeable. I feel like it's also because my face is a little bit more neutral in undertone compared to the rest of my body. So that's part of the reason why I feel like I can get away with wearing this sunscreen on its own. But I do have a slight yellow undertone to my face, so I can't help but always think about whether or not I am looking slightly gray when I wear this sunscreen on its own and without any foundation over it. One of the last times I saw my cousin, I actually made her try a generous amount of this sunscreen. She is an NC40 in MAC shade. I also find her face to be quite neutral, but she does lean more on the cooler side. I figured since this retails for 48 Canadian dollars and it makes the claim that it can adapt to most skin tones and that the UV filters for the most part are translucent and microfine, I thought I would test it on her shade to see how well it can actually adapt. So I made her apply a very generous amount of this to the point where she gave me a look wondering why I gave her so much. But she did apply it all over her face and neck, and we did wait 15 to 20 minutes to give it a chance to actually adapt to her skin tone. After the 15-20 minutes, she inspected her face and I asked her how she felt about the sunscreen now that we waited, and she said she liked how it looked. Her skin looked really nice and glowy. It looked even, and she couldn't tell that there was a mineral sunscreen on her face. It didn't look casty at all, and again, it looked very skin-like. Based on me and her trialing out this sunscreen, I feel like for the most part it does adapt pretty well to other skin tones, but I also feel like it's because we both have a more neutral undertone to our face, which is why the both of us can get away with it, despite the fact that she leans a little bit more cool and I lean a little bit more warm. In terms of water resistance, on the Canadian website, it does say that this is water resistant for up to 40 minutes. However, on the packaging itself, it recommends to use another sunscreen if you plan on sweating or doing any swimming activities that day. So when in doubt, I go by what's on the packaging. However, it is inconvenient if you are shopping online and you are expecting this to be a water-resistant all-mineral sunscreen. In terms of additional skin benefits and how this sunscreen performs under makeup, like I previously mentioned, I found that this has a really nice glowy natural finish to the skin. It did a good job at evening out my skin tone and reducing any redness that I had. So because of that, I could go in with a lighter application of foundation or a lighter coverage foundation, and it was good enough to cover the slight gray undertone that I was a little bit self-conscious about. In addition, it did not add or subtract to the longevity of my makeup, and I also found it didn't make my makeup look cakier. With those additional skin benefits, I found it to be the case near the beginning of me wearing the sunscreen, but as the day would progress, I would notice that my skin felt a lot drier during the day compared to other sunscreens I would wear. In addition, I noticed this performs slightly differently on me in the colder months compared to the warmer months, and the biggest difference I see is that this has more of a tendency to create dry patches in the colder months. So that's why during application I mentioned I go in with a lighter hand. I don't work it into my skin as much because I have noticed that it picks up on dry patches a lot and it's very obvious even after I apply a moisturizing foundation. So for the overall pros of the Skinceuticals Physical Fusion UV Defense SPF 50 sunscreen, I like that it is at an SPF of 50 for an all mineral sunscreen. For it to be that high, it is a little bit difficult to find one that is cosmetically elegant on the market, especially at your local drugstore. Adding on to that, I found it fairly easy to apply the 2 milligrams per centimeter square. It felt very light on my skin. I liked how it evened out my skin tone, reduced any redness, and it looked quite skin-like. For the cons, the first point is definitely the stinging. I don't like how it happened more frequently than not, and again, because it is an all-mineral sunscreen, I was expecting it to be a bit more gentle on the skin. The second con is the fact that this pills a lot around my hairline and eyebrows. Even when I do a light application, it is still pilling all over. Now for the in-between feels, so that means it can either be a pro or a con depending how you look at it. The first point is its price. I did pay 48 Canadian dollars for 50 mils. And while that is expensive, I personally look past it because it does perform really well, and for an all-mineral sunscreen at an SPF of 50, it's pretty hard to find a cosmetically elegant one on the market, especially at your local drugstore. Another in-between feel I have is the undertone. It is slightly gray, and while I understand the purpose of that undertone is to help reduce the redness in my skin, I still can't help but feel a little bit self-conscious if I were to wear this on its own. Like I said, even though my face is a little bit more neutral than the rest of my body, it still leans a bit yellow. But again, going in with a lighter application of foundation or a lighter coverage foundation is easy enough to hide that undertone. Overall, I am pretty impressed with the Skinceuticals Physical Fusion UV Shield SPF 50 sunscreen. Out of all the mineral sunscreens I have tried so far, I think this performs pretty well next to the Klairs Midday Blue UV Shield. I actually think they both perform the same when I wear it in the warmer months and the colder months. I have tried the Klairs Midday Blue UV Shield now during the colder months just to see how it performs on my skin, and it's very similar to this one in the sense that it does have a tendency to create more dry patches, whereas in the summertime, I rarely experience that. I personally still prefer using hybrid sunscreens, so both mineral and organic UV filters, just because I find that not only can I apply the 2 mg per centimeter square all in one go, I don't find that I'm as worried about there being a cast on my skin. And that is it for this review. As always, I hope you find videos like this helpful and informative. If you did enjoy this video, please be sure to give it a like, subscribe to my channel down below for future videos, leave a comment if you have any questions or recommendations, and I will see you all soon. Ciao.